everyone, Miss Carrie here from Miss Carrie's Creations. I'm going to create a bright, colorful layout today that is designed to use up some of those random ephemera bits in your stash. This project also has a separate CRICUT tutorial that shows you how to make that faux shaker border in Design Space, and I can't wait to share it with you. I'm going to be using the Graffiti Art Page Kit today from Not Just for Boys Kit Club. This one includes some fabulous patterns from Reminisce and Vicki Boutin. Along with the paper and cardstock, you also receive some acetate film frames, sequins, black acrylic paint, 2 Shimmerz paints, and a cardstock cut. The layout I'm sharing today is going to also use a bunch of random leftovers that I've needed to use up. So I'll make sure to share the list of the collections in my description below so that you can search your craft room for those items. I've got this great black and white photo of the girls. I'm going to be laying out this CRICUT cut I created, and I'm going to turn it into a faux shaker border behind the photo. If you are interested, I do have a separate tutorial for this, and I'll be putting a link to that down in the description below. Behind that faux shaker, I'm going to add a rainbow of Shimmerz paints. 2 of these Shimmerz came with the kit, and the other colors are ones I've received with other Not Just for Boys kits or added to my collection through various purchases. I'm going to be swishing bits of color across the page in rainbow fashion. As you can see, I did activate those paints with water before I brushed them onto the paper. Some of these come in a solid cake when you receive them, and it just takes a small amount of water to activate them. The background paper I'm using is a mixed media foundation paper. If you're just using a standard cardstock, I would suggest placing some gesso down or prepping the page first so that your cardstock doesn't pile or warp too much. As I'm adding the various colors onto the page, I am spritzing a little bit of water before I add the pigment. This is just helping that paint flow into the color next to it and give it more of a pastel feel. If you don't have this many colors of Shimmerz paints, you can mix the 2 colors that came with the kit and create various shades of green or green-blue, which would give this almost a monochromatic scheme on the page. If you don't own Shimmerz paints, this design could be replicated with inks, watercolor paints, sprays, or distress crayons. All of these can create a really nice color wash on the page. I do like the glitter finish of the Shimmerz paints, which is why I chose to use them today. Alright, now that the Shimmerz paints have dried and set, I'm going to add a few little black splatters with that acrylic paint that came in the kit. I just placed a little tiny bit of it onto my glass board, added a small amount of water, and I'm using a brush to apply the splatters of paint. I'm using a fine-tipped brush so that I have a little bit more control with the sprinkling of paint. If you want larger splatters, you could use a larger brush or a fan brush. But I don't want to add too much here, just a few random splats that are going to stick out behind my elements. Once all the paint had dried, I wanted to add a little bit of stenciling to the page. My photo and the 2 film strip pieces are going to sit here with my title off to the left. And I want to create a grid design that lays above my photo and beneath the title. I want to create it in more of a diagonal pattern that's going to help lead your eye across the page. I chose weathered wood for my ink color. The new Lost shadow color would also be really lovely on this page, but I've not had a chance to order that one yet. So as you can see, this grid design just created a lovely pattern against all of those rainbow designs. And now we're going to assemble that heart border and add it to the page. I used my CRICUT machine to cut a frame from light gray cardstock. and the background was cut from the Typeset paper that came in the kit. You can also cut out some acetate and build a true shaker with foam tape if you wish, but I'm just going to create a faux shaker today to lessen the amount of bulk on my layout. I'm also using a thinner foam tape to adhere the frame to the pattern paper so that it looks more like a shaker, but it is thinner in design. If I'd been planning ahead, I would have cut this out of adhesive foam with my CRICUT and saved myself a little bit of time. And now that the shaker is assembled, I'm going to adhere a few of these little sequins down into the background. I want this to look like a shaker, but I don't want to cover up too much of the pattern. These sequins came with the kit, and they have some great little patterns and shapes. There's some black stars, some bright green stars, some lovely teal and blue-green and black and white sequins. I'm just using some liquid adhesive to glue these randomly in place, and then once I'm finished, I'll adhere it down onto my page. Now, this is the part where you get to start using up all of your leftover bits of ephemera. I'm going to create blocks of color with mine by placing like color objects over the strips of shimmer paint. I'm starting with the green color around the photo. This is going to be the more predominant color on the page so that it draws your eye to the focus of the layout. Below that photo, I've added a strip of pattern paper from the kit, and I'm laying some washi tape behind it. To the right of the photo, I'm bringing in a strip of pattern paper from the kit in a blue-green color, and I'm adding some more ephemera bits with these little tickets. Above the photo, I added a little green frame to that border strip. This was something I created with my CRICUT. And I'm also going to add a little circle and some phrases. You're going to see me lay out some of the butterflies and some flags, but in the end, I do simplify this page and remove a few of these pieces. Now I'm moving over to the yellow area, and I'm adding a few little flags. So far, most of my phrases have been horizontal, so I'm going to switch it up by placing a vertical phrase here. Like I said, this project is a great one to make when you have all those random leftover pieces from kits or collections. Most of the items I'm adding are from 49 and Market collections that I had left over from my other Not Just for Boys kits. It was at this point that I did decide to simplify this design a bit. Most of the weight is at the top of the page with that border and bits of ephemera, so that horizontal piece at the base of the page was not necessary. While I was finishing adding the rest of the items to the page, I realized that I was missing a third circle in my visual triangle. I decided to cut apart one of the tags that I had in an ephemera kit. Now I have a nice visual triangle of circles around the photo. At this point, I shut off the camera so that I could paint the title with that black acrylic paint. While I was off camera, I added some bits of stitching, and then I adhered the title in place. To finish off the title, I added a few additional phrases so that it said, "You rock my heart beautiful." To finish off that title, I added a charcoal colored arrow that points towards the photo, and then I added some enamel dots to the page. So here is the layout I created today with that graffiti art page kit. There's some bright colors on this design, and I really like how it turned out. The faux shaker border with the typeset pattern was a simple project to create, and I enjoyed digging through my leftover kits and using up some of those random pieces on this page. If you're interested in learning how to make that border with your CRICUT, I have added a link to the tutorial in the description below. Projects like this are a great way to use up those bits of ephemera, sticker packs, or die cut collections. The design I created today has a pastel rainbow in the background that I created with Shimmerz paints, But you could easily switch this to a monochromatic scheme or use deeper shades of color to give it a vintage feel. If you're one who enjoys pinning photos to inspiration boards, I have added photos of this layout on the Not Just for Boys Kit Club blog and on my website for you to use. If you would like more ideas for using this kit, you can join the Not Just for Boys Kit Club community on Facebook and see even more designs. I want to thank you for joining me for another scrapbook project. If you have any questions about this project or the supplies listed below, feel free to post that in the comments. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to see what you create.